Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
Welcome back to FPL graduates and welcome back to another video. Wow, we were missing FPL for a while, weren't we? And now two game weeks come along at once. We're going into game week 31. Myself and Josh both wildcarded in game week 30. Let's see how the state of players going into this game week.
Okay, then, yeah. So, as we mentioned on the team reveals last week, we thought we might have to wildcard. And Erling Haaland news of him being out for a foreseeable amount of time sort of confirmed that from myself and Ben. So, these teams are going to look a lot different than what the teams you would have seen in last week's video if you just tune into our YouTube stuff. I know that the guys over on Instagram would have seen it, our team reveals and stuff like that. So, yeah, we'll go through it and we'll also give some tips as to anyone who's wildcarding this week in Game Week 31 what players that maybe we wouldn't have chosen already, and what players maybe to definitely have if you're looking ahead. So, yeah, in defence for me this week, I've got obviously Edison in goal. I went for him as the double up in that City defence. It paid off last week with that clean sheet against Leicester, which was nice. United away this week is not a bad fixture. United going forwards are just terrible. But I do think this fixture does sort of suit Man United in the way that they play. They can be a lot more transitional, which suits the players that they've got up top for sure. So, it'll be an interesting one, but I definitely won't be doubling up on that City defence for me this week. Timber is in the back line at the moment. He's currently flagged on FPL. He got taken off with, it seemed like he got injured early on in the game and then continued to play with it and then eventually got taken off. So, yet to get an update on him at the moment. But yeah, both of the Arsenal defenders that I chose got injured in the same game when I got them. So that was lovely from FPL. And then, yeah, the other two defenders sort of picked themselves this week with Dan Burn with Leicester away, hoping for a clean sheet there. I thought Newcastle did pretty well against Brentford and probably unlucky to give away that penalty in all regards. And then obviously Daniel Munoz, he came off a little bit earlier as well. Against Southampton, which was a massive disappointment. I think, a lot of wildcard is why we went early, is to get on these Crystal Palace assets away at Southampton. Their away form's been fantastic. Southampton at home are terrible. Just didn't really pan out that way unless you had Jefferson Lerma and Mateus Franca. So hoping for a bit more with him. Again, against Brighton, it's obviously one of those weird derbies, if you could call it that. So we'll see how they get on. What's the thoughts on that defensive line, Ben?
Yeah, I mean it's fairly strong, as strong as you can make it, considering the injuries. I'm not as worried about Timber, to be honest. It didn't look really serious, and of course we're recording this before we know sort of any concrete news. I should think that Timber will perhaps maybe miss out one game week if he's going to miss out on anything, and then I'd assume he'd be back sort of going forwards. But of course, until we have confirmation, we're just not going to know. Do like the Newcastle and Palace picks there of Dan Burn and Munoz. Both are going to be crucial going forwards, especially if Palace having the back-to-back doubles, which is very nice for managers. If you haven't hit the assistant managership, then that's an option. Otherwise, yeah, in any case, you're going to be having probably three assets going forward, despite sort of not performing too well last game week. So all in all, a fairly strong defence.
Yeah, 100%. And if we do get any sort of confirmation that Timber is out for this game week, I almost certainly would be moving Gabriel on, who is obviously out for the rest of the season, it seems, with a hamstring injury, which didn't look great when it happened. Almost was certain that he was going to miss the rest of the season because when players pull up like that, it's almost confirmed. So yeah, I'd probably be moving on Gabriel for Saliba is the thoughts. But I'm not too overly keen on a double Arsenal defence without Gabriel. I know obviously defensively they've been very, very solid, but their data without Gabriel in the team is nowhere near as good as when he is in there. So it's something to think about, maybe if there's another option. But obviously with the double game that's coming up, I probably am still going to attack that Arsenal team. It's just if I want to do that double defence or if I want to maybe bring in another attacker. Okay, then. So, yeah, we're moving into the midfield then. We're going to kick off with Mo Salah. Obviously, he blanked last week against Everton at home. Lots of people captained him. I think he was still 175% effectively owned at my rank. So, still a big risk to go against him. But if many did with Marmoush and Isak, then it definitely paid off last week. Fulham away this week is an interesting one. Fulham seem to really blow hot and cold defensively. They're almost like sort of nearly on the beach, I want to say, at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see how they get on there. I thought Liverpool weren't amazing against Everton in that game, but they obviously got the job done, which is all they need to do at the moment. So yeah, I probably will have him on the captaincy for the time being, but it all depends on the fitness of one main man up top. Bukayo Saka, obviously, we brought him in last week. Obviously, he was benched but got the goal, which was massive. If he didn't do that, then yeah, it might have been a red arrow on the wild card, which wouldn't have been great. I expect probably a start here ahead of those Real Madrid games because he's going to need to get 90 minutes to get some match fitness in there. I know he's been playing games behind closed doors, but there's nothing like the real thing. Eze obviously came away with a blank against Southampton. Brighton at home, hoping for something from him. I thought he looked really good in that FA Cup game. Is the main reason why I went him over Sarr, for example. Both of them didn't really do anything in the Southampton game, so hoping for a bit more this week. And then Jacob Murphy obviously got that assist for Isak's goal last game week. Leicester this week, really happy to own him at £5 million. He's like just exactly what he says on the tin. Just, will be reliable. Will tick over with some points here and there. So happy to own him, especially with the double game week coming up in 32. So yeah, what's the thoughts on the midfield, Ben? Would you consider playing Rodgers over one of them?
Yeah, like I'd consider it, but who you'd pick over him is really sort of the sort of deciding factor, I think. And I think certain injury news that may or may not come out before the deadline might impact that. So it's good to have such a strong bench, especially sort of midfield areas. You're definitely sort of set up to be able to look at the bench boost going forwards. I agree with the Salah captaincy. I think he's probably the strongest pick as it stands. Of course, like a certain main man up top might cause a bit of a headache if fit, but of course, yeah, I think he's probably the best option to go for. Saka, maybe an outside bet for captaincy, but again, I do think he's probably getting between 55 and 75 minutes this game week. I don't see him getting the full 90 anyway. So yeah, all in all, it's a very strong midfield and one that's fairly template as well, considering wildcard.
100%. And then going on to probably the most template front three in the game at the moment, we've got Mateta at first. He obviously got subbed off on the 59th minute against Southampton, which wasn't really a shock that he got subbed off early because he has been ever since he's come back from this head injury. But yeah, it was just frustrating that it was before the 60. And then Isak, obviously, he would be probably, if I knew that he would play 90 minutes, I definitely would choose him over Mo Salah for the armband this week, just on the sheer basis that Leicester are that bad. And anyone that plays them at the moment really has a good day against them. And I think it's like 66 days since Leicester have scored in the Premier League, which is absolutely crazy. So yeah, for me, I think he's a fantastic option if fit. Obviously, he came off a little bit earlier in that game, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Obviously, we have no news at the time of recording. We're recording this at 2 minutes to 8 on Thursday night, just for a timestamp. And then Marmoush rounds off the attack. Obviously, he got the goal against Leicester, which was nice. Obviously, picked up some bonus points too. United this week, again, could see him potentially doing some damage there. It'd be interesting to see how they line up, though, against United, because a lot of key players were rested against Leicester. Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne. And we also know that there can be rotation in that front line. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I'd expect to start from Marmoush. It's just sort of who else plays with him is the main question there. In regards to transfers, like I said, it's probably going to be for Gabriel if I do make one. Ideally, I don't want to make one. So if Timber could be fit, that would be great. And then I could just roll it to the following week and obviously gain more information on that. What's the thoughts on the attack, Ben? And would you be moving Gabriel on this week or would you wait?
I'd probably move Gabriel on this week just because I think you're putting out a fire for the rest of the season essentially with Gabriel being out. If it was any doubt that he may like we got with Timber, then I'd be hesitant to sell just to get as much information as possible. But we've got all the information we need on Gabriel, so it's definitely a sell for me. And yeah, not too much really to say about the front three. Like fairly standard, fairly template. Don't see Marmoush getting benched anytime soon, just because of how well he's playing. Really, more than anything. City need as many high performers as possible playing in that team. And Marmoush seems to be getting the goals at the moment. So don't see that sort of stopping anytime soon. Okay, so moving on into my team, and I also hit the wild card last week. So a lot of these players are very similar to Josh's team. As you can see in goal, we've got David Wright, Everton away. Unfortunate to concede sort of fairly late on. That would have been a double Arsenal clean sheet. But wasn't to be in the end. Had Timber as well. He's currently on the bench just because he is an injury doubt. In the defence, we've got Munoz, just like Josh. We've got Guardiola, just like Josh. And we've got Dan Pern, just like Josh. It's fairly template, this wild card, and for good reason as well, because we have a limited number of teams doubling. That's going to make teams very similar, and there's not going to be too much to differentiate between some of them. So it means that if the template is very strong, you could sort of come far behind the template if you're not going against it, or equally, if the template doesn't do too well, then you're ahead of the pack. Timber on the bench at the moment. If he is fit, I'll be very tempted to start him ahead of potentially someone like Vardiol, or maybe Munoz if I'm not confident on a Crystal Palace clean sheet and triple up, which is almost putting my eggs in one basket, and then potentially doubling up on Arsenal defence, considering Everton, again, don't have too much to play for, albeit I think the atmosphere at Goodison's going to be pretty good. Josh, what's the thoughts on the defence?
Yeah, obviously it's really similar to mine. I think Timber, for me, I would start ahead of either Munoz or Gavardio. I think that's a tough 50-50 between those two, because United going forwards aren't as good as Brighton, but equally you probably carry a little bit more attacking threat with Munoz. I know a lot of people were worried about Gavardio playing centre back against Leicester, but I think it was mainly due to the opposition. I don't think that's something that's going to happen long term. Obviously, we saw Nico Riley play left back like he did in the FA Cup. So, yeah, I wouldn't be worried about that long term. I think it's just against, I guess, lesser opposition, to be kind to Leicester, that he'll play at centre back, because obviously it's less risk in terms of defensive responsibility. But I think going forwards, we'll definitely see him probably at left back at Old Trafford at the weekend.
Okay, so moving on into the midfield now. And as you can see, I've also got Salah on the captaincy. I think he's probably the best captaincy option this week. As we spoke about with Isaac, there's an element of doubt in terms of minutes. And I just think for safety, easy to captain Salah. Liverpool had to get that win, really, to get a bit of confidence back. It's been 2.5 weeks since they played, to get back into that rhythm. I thought they played relatively well. Salah didn't play well really at all, didn't really get into the game at all. But of course, we know the threat that he has carried over the entire season so far. So I'm not letting one game in isolation put me off that captaincy. Bukayo Saka, of course, maybe lucky to get the returns that we did last game week, but fairly happy with that and ahead of the curve in terms of a free transfer. If I'd wildcarded and didn't have Saka in, I'd almost would have felt like it was pointless, because Saka seems to be the go-to now for managers getting that second premium in. I've got Ismail Assar rather than Eze, which Josh has. For me, it's just more budgetary than anything else. My team value isn't great compared to a lot of managers making early transfers, etc. I've made all my transfers late, which means team value is not great. But so far it hasn't impacted me too much. So I'm going for Sarr for that reason. Murphy as well, a starter for Newcastle for 5 million is an absolute bargain. I do think if you can afford Gordon going into that double after his ban, then I would go there, just because his ceiling is that little bit higher, and the minutes are slightly more secure as well. But I do think Murphy is a great value pick. And just like Josh, I got Rodgers first on the bench, which again isn't ideal, but I'm not really sure who I'd start ahead of him. So, I'm going to have to sort of suck my teeth and sort of hope he doesn't get a return there. Josh, what's the thoughts there on the midfield?
Yeah, obviously similar to mine, so won't touch over those players. I think Sarr, again, I think his data is actually better than Eze's this season. So if you're tossing and turning between those, then you can maybe look towards that. It's personal preference, really. I don't think there's too much between either. Obviously, like Ben says, Sarr does save you a bit of cash if you need it. And I agree with the Anthony Gordon shout. If I was wildcarding this week, I probably would have Gordon over Murphy. But obviously, not going to turn my nose up at the assist that he got us last week. And obviously, the value is there. He's almost 2.5 million cheaper than Anthony Gordon. So, you've got to set your expectations. He's not going to get the same output there as well. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Would I go triple Newcastle attack? Probably not. I think defensively they've got some okay fixtures, and defensively they are an okay team despite all the injuries that they've had at the back. So yeah, for me, I think having one in each position is probably the best way forward.
Okay, so moving on into the strike force and the rest of the team, I've got the exact same front three: Isak, Mateta, and Marmoush. So to be honest, not really too much to talk on there. Um, yeah, I'm fairly happy with all three. Like I said, Mateta we knew was going to get limited minutes. We'll have to see on the fitness of Alexander Isak as well. But yeah, all in all, fairly happy with the team and with the structure and with the setup. So I can't complain too much. The plan is not to use any of my free transfers this week and give myself in the best position as possible ahead of the double game weeks, with a free hit to still use in the blank game week. And of course, the triple captain and bench boost still in play as well. So really looking forward to playing those. As you can see, Kappa, Rogers, Timber and Williams is a fairly strong bench to have going into sort of the next couple of weeks. So fairly happy with that. The only benching headache really is probably Rogers and Timber, if Timber and Rogers, of course, are both fit. A couple of injury concerns there. Josh, what's the overall thoughts on the team that is fairly similar to yours?
Yeah, we were getting battered about it on Instagram, saying that we picked the same team, but it is for that reason of the doublers and the blanks. Like everyone's going to be trying to target those, and unfortunately, those teams don't have too many options to choose from when it comes to spicing it up a little bit. I think in hindsight, I maybe would have gone for another Aston Villa midfielder, potentially Rashford. Obviously, he's probably their first choice penalty taker over a Sarr or Eze, but obviously last week I wouldn't have done that because we were attacking the Southampton fixture. So there are a few changes that I would potentially make now. I think that being the main one, you can maybe look around at another forward, but to be honest, there's not too much else there. If you're really trying to attack the doubles, obviously you could go single game week players, but for me, I'd always try and go and attack those doubles. Obviously, if you're not sure who is doubling, it has been confirmed now for those Game Week 31 wildcarders, but it was as projected. So Crystal Palace, Arsenal, City, and Newcastle 32 Crystal Palace and Newcastle double, and then Villa, Manchester City, Arsenal, and Crystal Palace double in 33. That's some good knowledge from me. So yeah, and then obviously those teams in 33 will then blank in 34. So if you need a bit of confirmation on that, check out our Instagram because we've got it all over there for your eyes. Okay then, so that wraps up our Game Week 31 team reveals. So we haven't done a wildcard video, but we both wildcarded last week and sort of gone over some of the additional picks that we might have chosen this week rather than last. So hopefully that has helped you if you are wildcarding this week. And obviously if you need help with your chip strategy and things like that, do comment down below.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
next time. Have a good game week, everyone.
So you